The hum wasn't a hum. It was a voice, whispering a single sustained note, right on the other side of a wall far too thin to hide how close it was. Story 1. The Hum in the Walls. Submitted by Randall. I moved into a top-floor studio in a building that should have been condemned years ago. The elevator worked only when it felt generous. The walls were soft enough to push a thumb into, and the whole place smelled faintly like mildew and old carpet. The first night I slept there, I heard it, a low hum coming from inside the walls. At first, I assumed it was the pipes or the building's ancient boiler. Old places make noise, but this didn't sound mechanical. It wasn't random. It had rhythm. The hum was deep, almost subsonic, pulsing slowly through the drywall. It reminded me of someone humming a single note under their breath, but doing it directly beside my ear. Every night around 2 a.m., it started. Low, slow, persistent. It sank through everything. Earplugs, white noise, even sleeping pills. I could feel it more than hear it, like vibration traveling through bone instead of air. One night, half asleep and fed up, I slammed my fist into the wall and shouted, "Knock it off." The hum stopped, dead silent. For the first time since moving in, my body loosened. The tension drained out of me so fast it felt like relief had weight. Then I heard it, from the other side of the wall. A knock, slow, soft, answering me. My breath left my body in a single cold burst. I backed away from the wall like it was something alive, something coiled and waiting. I didn't hear anything else that night, but I didn't sleep either. A few days passed. Then the humming came back. Worse, lower, longer, stronger, like it was closer. I could feel it vibrating through my bed frame, shaking the mattress just slightly, like pressure from underneath. I told myself it was old piping, bad insulation, acoustics, buildings make noise. But something in my gut kept whispering the same thought. It's not in the building. It's in the wall. One night, exhausted and desperate, I pressed my ear directly against the drywall. Instant regret. The hum wasn't a hum. It was a voice, whispering a single sustained note, right on the other side of a wall far too thin to hide how close it was. And underneath that tone, I heard something else. Breathing. Slow. Ragged. Wet. Not like a person. Like something that hadn't needed to breathe before, and was learning how. I stumbled backward, grabbed the first thing I could find, a broom, and went straight to the maintenance office the next morning. I told them someone was inside the wall. They laughed at first. Then they saw my face. The maintenance guy came with me, checked both sides of the wall, crawled through the crawl space above my unit, even ran a camera through the vent. Nothing. Probably heating ducts, he said. Or raccoons. Raccoons do not hum in long, steady notes. That night, the sound came back stronger than ever. It pressed through the walls like heat. And this time, it wasn't alone. A second hum joined in, higher pitched, almost harmonizing with the first. Two voices, breathing together, learning together. I grabbed my keys and fled to a hotel. Slept harder than I had in weeks. The next morning, I went back only to grab essentials. The hallway outside my apartment felt heavier, the air stale like a forgotten basement. I heard something before I even reached the door. Not humming, tapping, steady, rhythmic, like knuckles rapping along the inside of the wall. I didn't go in. I left everything else behind and moved out that afternoon. A few days later, because apparently I have no sense of self-preservation, I drove past the building. My old apartment window had been boarded up. Maintenance tape crossed the door. Stapled to the wood was a city notice. Structural hazard, unknown instability. Unit sealed, pending investigation. I asked the property manager what happened. He said the wall in my old unit had buckled outward, like something inside had pushed so hard it warped the structure. He joked that maybe the building was trying to breathe. I didn't laugh, because I still hear that hum at night if the room gets too quiet. Not everywhere, only in small rooms, only where the walls are close enough to listen. Story 2: The Visitor in the Guest Room. Submitted by Daniel. When my dad passed away last year, I inherited his house. It wasn't big, wasn't impressive, just a single-story place in a quiet neighborhood where the streetlights always burned a little too orange and the nights seemed to linger longer than they should. I didn't want to move in, didn't want to feel like I was filling the space he left behind, but I didn't have anywhere else to go. And the house, whether it was memory or something else, felt like it was waiting for me to come back. The place was colder than I remembered. Dust gathered in corners that didn't make sense. The air felt tight, like the house had been holding itself together for a long time and was finally getting tired. Out of every room, there was one I avoided. The guest room. I couldn't explain why. Walking past the doorway made my chest tighten, like my body recognized something my brain refused to name. The air inside was stale, sour in a way that suggested it hadn't truly been empty, just unused. There were no windows, just an old lamp on the nightstand, still plugged in. A bed with a faded quilt that looked like it had absorbed decades of restless sleep. And a closet door painted shut sometime in the late 90s. My dad never used that room. Even when family visited, he made them sleep on the couch. As a kid, I wasn't allowed inside. He'd close the door carefully, slowly, like he didn't want to disturb whatever was in there. When I moved in, the first thing I did was shut the guest room door. It didn't stay closed. Every morning, it was open the same few inches. Not wide, not drifting, just enough to see the corner of the bed. I told myself it was the house settling. Old hinges, loose latch. But when I wedged a chair under the knob one night, really wedged it, and still woke up to the door cracked open the exact same amount, that's when the unease settled in for good. The chair hadn't moved. The knob hadn't turned. The door simply wasn't latched anymore. After that, I slept with my bedroom door shut. Not because I was afraid something would come out of the guest room, but because I didn't want to know if it ever left it. The first night it got bad was almost completely silent. I was lying awake, the kind of awake where the dark feels heavier, like it's pressing inward. I rolled onto my side and froze. I didn't hear anything, but I felt it. A shift in the air outside my bedroom door. The unmistakable sense of someone standing there. Not breathing loud enough to hear. Not moving, just present. The cold wasn't a temperature change. It was pressure, like the warmth in the room was being slowly drawn away. I stared at the doorway until my eyes hurt, until the shadows started rearranging themselves whenever I blinked. Then the presence moved, down the hallway, toward the guest room, and a moment later, a soft yellow glow spilled across the floor. The guest room lamp had turned on, by itself. No timer, no smart bulb, just an old stiff switch you had to twist hard until it clicked. I didn't want to look, but I did. The guest room door was wide open now. Not cracked, not drifting. Open. Light poured out like it had been waiting all night to be seen. I stepped into the hallway, every movement careful, the air growing heavier with each step. Inside the room, the shadows stretched too long, too tall. The bed was made perfectly, except for the indentation. A deep one, someone-shaped, lying on their side, facing the wall. The mattress dipped at the hip, a clear curve at the shoulder. Even the pillow was slightly compressed, like it had just been released. No footprints, no disturbed dust, no warmth, just absence. This wasn't a person. People don't lie down like that without sound or movement. This was something older, something that knew how to wait. I backed away slowly, never turning my back until I locked myself in my bedroom and shoved a dresser against the door. I didn't sleep. When morning came, I checked the room again. Everything was normal. Lamp off, bed flat, quilt smooth. But the air still felt wrong. Dense, attentive, like the room was listening. I moved out that afternoon, took clothes and essentials, left everything else behind. A week later, the realtor called. She asked if someone had stayed in the guest room recently, because the bed, the one I'd never touched, was freshly depressed, like someone was lying there. Right then, I told her to lock the house and leave. I haven't been back since. But sometimes, late at night, in my new apartment, I feel that same pressure behind a closed door. No sound, no movement, just presence. And I'm starting to think the thing in that room was never tied to the house at all. Maybe it belonged to my father. And maybe now, it knows where I sleep. Story 3. The Woman in the Hallway Mirror. Submitted by Talia. When I moved into my new condo, the place came with one thing the previous owner didn't bother to take. A tall hallway mirror. It was old-fashioned, oval-shaped, framed in tarnished brass. The kind of antique that feels less like decoration and more like an observer. I would have taken it down, but it was bolted into the wall, like someone had gone out of their way to make sure it stayed exactly where it was. The first few days passed without incident, but the mirror made me uneasy in that quiet, instinctive way, like when you can tell someone is standing too close behind you even before you turn around. It wasn't the mirror itself. It was the reflection. It felt delayed, not enough to notice unless you were looking for it. Just a fraction of a second. One night, half asleep, I walked past and turned my head slightly. The reflection followed late. I froze and stared straight at myself until my eyes burned. After a moment, everything lined up perfectly again. No lag, no distortion. I told myself I was tired. But after that, I started paying attention, and the mirror kept slipping. Sometimes my reflection's posture didn't match mine exactly. Sometimes it looked a touch taller. Sometimes its expression lingered a moment longer than it should have. Once, shuffling down the hall early in the morning, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. My reflection's eyes weren't looking at me. They were looking past me, down the hallway behind me. I spun around. Nothing. Just the closed closet door at the end of the hall. That was the first time I avoided the mirror on purpose. But the hallway is narrow. Eventually, I had to pass it again. 3 weeks after moving in, I noticed something new in the reflection, something I know wasn't there before. The hallway behind me stretched further than it should have, only by a few feet, just enough to be wrong. In reality, the hallway ended at the closet door. In the mirror, it kept going. And standing at the far end of that impossible extension was a woman. She was barely visible, blurred by distance and shadow. Her head tilted at an unnatural angle, like she was listening for something I couldn't hear. Her hair hung long and stringy, damp-looking, covering most of her face. I turned so fast I nearly slipped. Nothing behind me, but when I looked back at the mirror, the hallway was still longer. And the woman was closer. Not much, maybe a foot, but undeniably closer. I didn't sleep that night. Over the next week, I tried everything. I covered the mirror with a bedsheet, stuffed towels along the edges so it couldn't shift. Every morning, the sheet was gone, folded neatly on the floor. No mess, no signs of struggle, like someone wanted me to keep looking. And every time I did, the woman had moved closer to the surface of the glass. She only advanced when I wasn't watching, only existed in the reflection, never the real hallway. Her head stayed tilted, her shoulders hunched, like she'd spent years trying to fit into spaces too small for her. I never saw her face clearly, just impressions. Cheekbones too sharp, eyes too dark, a mouth that looked wrong, like it had been cut and put back together without care. The night before I finally snapped, I woke with the overwhelming certainty that something was waiting in the hallway. Not moving, not breathing, just waiting. I lay there for over an hour before I forced myself out of bed. The hallway was dark, silent, empty. But the mirror, she was right up against the glass. Her face pressed almost flat, skin stretched thin like old paper. Her eyes were too wide, as if something had pried them open and never let them close again. Her lips moved, not forming words, just slow, deliberate shapes, like she was practicing how to be human. Then she smiled, the kind of smile that looks painful, the kind that isn't meant for anyone living. I ran, slammed my bedroom door shut, stayed there until morning. When I finally stepped back into the hallway, shaking and exhausted, the mirror was cracked straight down the center. Not shattered, just one clean line, corner to corner. The extra stretch of hallway was gone. Just my reflection, just the closet door. For one brief moment, I felt relief. Then I noticed something else. The crack didn't distort me. It distorted the hallway behind me. One side reflected my real hallway. The other side showed a different one, longer, darker, unfamiliar. Empty, but not still. There was faint movement deep in the darkness. Not a figure, not an animal, just the hallway itself, subtly expanding and contracting. Like breathing, like it wasn't a reflection anymore, like something had been opened. I moved out the next morning. But sometimes, when I pass windows late at night, I catch a glimpse of an extra stretch of hallway behind me, just for a second, just long enough for a shape at the far end to tilt her head, as if listening. Story 4. The Neighbor's Attic. I've always lived in quiet neighborhoods. Nothing exciting ever happened, which is exactly why I noticed it immediately, the new neighbors moving in across the street. At first, everything seemed normal. A couple in their 40s, quiet, polite. But their house, something was off. From the outside, the attic window was always open. Always. And sometimes, late at night, I'd see a shadow move across it. I'm not the kind of person who believes in ghosts, but the way that shadow lingered, it felt wrong. One night, I was home alone, and the street was completely silent. I was on my couch scrolling through my phone when I saw it again. The shadow at the attic window. Only this time, it looked closer, larger somehow, and it wasn't moving like a person. It was floating. I tried to rationalize it. Tree branches, maybe a reflection, but the street lamp wasn't even on that side of the house. And the shadow didn't change with the wind. Curiosity got the better of me. I grabbed my jacket and my flashlight and walked across the street. The door was locked, of course, but I noticed a small wooden hatch near the base of the house, partially hidden by overgrown shrubs. I hadn't seen it before. I crouched down and tried the latch. It clicked open. Inside was a narrow, dusty stairway that led straight up into the darkness. My stomach turned, but I couldn't stop. Something was calling me. Step by step, I climbed. The air got colder. The floorboards creaked under my weight. By the time I reached the attic, my flashlight revealed nothing at first. Just stacks of old furniture and boxes, coated in years of dust. And then I heard it, a soft whisper. "Don't look." My heart slammed against my ribs. I spun around, but no one was there. The whisper came again, clearer. "Or you'll see me." I froze. The shadow I'd seen from the street was there, hovering in the corner. It was tall, impossibly thin, and its edges flickered like smoke. Its face. I can't even describe it. Not a face. Just emptiness. I thought about running, but my legs wouldn't move. The shadow drifted closer, and my flashlight flickered and died. Then I saw something I'll never forget. My own face staring back at me from the darkness, twisted, silent, and grinning. I screamed, tripped over a box, and tumbled down the stairs. I didn't stop until I was back on my porch, chest heaving, drenched in sweat. I looked back at the attic window. It was closed. The house was quiet again. Too quiet. I told myself it was a hallucination, sleep deprivation, something, anything to rationalize what I saw. But every night since, I swear I see a face at that attic window. Always watching. Waiting. And sometimes, when the street is silent enough, I hear it whispering my name. Story 5. The apartment above me. I moved into a small studio apartment about 3 months ago. The rent was cheap, the landlord seemed fine, and the building was old but cozy. I told myself I liked it. The first week was normal, but then I started hearing noises from the apartment above me. At first, it was just soft footsteps at night, nothing unusual in an old building. Then came the banging. Not the typical pipe settling kind of banging. This was deliberate. Heavy thuds, like someone dropping furniture at 2 or 3 a.m. I tried knocking on the ceiling, but no one ever answered. One night, curiosity got the better of me. I stayed up, waiting. The moment I heard the first thud, I grabbed my phone and texted my friend. I pressed it against the ceiling to hear better. The thud stopped. Silence. Then, a whisper, faint and dripping with malice. "I see you." I froze. My apartment was empty. I called the landlord the next morning. He said the apartment above me had been vacant for years. No one had lived there since the previous tenant died in a fire. I laughed it off at first. Hallucination, stress, whatever. But the noises kept happening. Every night. And each time, the whisper came closer, stronger, until I felt like it was right inside my bedroom. One evening, I decided to set up my phone to record the ceiling. I left it running and went to the kitchen to make tea. I poured the water, stirred, and then I heard it. The whisper, this time right behind me. "Don't turn around." I froze. My phone was still recording, so I didn't dare. But the air grew icy, and I could feel it. Something breathing, slow and heavy. I wanted to scream, but my voice caught in my throat. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I spun around. Nothing. The kitchen was empty. The apartment above me was quiet. I checked my phone later. The recording, it only caught static. And in the static, I swear I heard a faint, wet breathing sound coming from inside my apartment. Since that night, I sleep with all the lights on. I keep my phone under my pillow. And sometimes, when the building is silent enough, I hear the whisper again. "You're mine now."